The hall was too large for someone like her. The ceiling was high and cold lights washed over rows of silent faces. The alien girl stood alone at the center. Her thin hands held together as if that could stop them from shaking. Her name was Lyra, but no one here cared enough to say it. To the council she was only a number, a file, a problem that needed to be closed. Around her sat families, match elders and bonded pairs. They watched with polite distance, the kind that hurt more than open hate. On this world, marriage was not about love. It was about value, strength, genetics, and future power. Every adult knew this rule since birth. Lyra had failed every test that mattered to them. She was not strong enough for warrior lines, not clever enough for science houses, not rare enough for political unions. Her skin markings were considered dull, her energy output average, her voice too soft. The elder at the center lifted a data slate and spoke in a calm, flat tone. Lyra of the seventh ring, after 23 evaluations, no bond request has been accepted. A soft sound moved through the hall. Not surprise, just confirmation. The elder continued, according to social law, you are now classified as unchosen. That word landed heavy inside her chest. Unchosen meant unwanted. Unchosen meant no future family. No shared home. No place in the great houses. Lyra swallowed and forced herself to speak. Her voice barely carried across the room. Is there another trial I can take? The elder did not even look at her. The data slate already held the answer. No. That was it. One word to end her hopes. From the side seats, a few younger aliens looked at her with quiet pity. Others quickly looked away. Association with failure was dangerous in their culture. Lyra bowed as tradition demanded. Though her legs felt weak, thank you for your time, she whispered. As she turned to leave, the truth slipped out before she could stop it. A small broken sound that did not belong in such a grand hall. No one wants to marry me. She froze, ashamed of her own words. But no one reacted, because no one cared. Lyra walked out through the tall doors alone. Each step echoed behind her, reminding her how empty her future felt. Outside, the city of Verex stretched wide and shining, floating towers and air paths full of life. Yet she felt invisible among it all. She moved through the streets slowly, her mind heavy with questions she was tired of asking. What was wrong with her? Why was being kind never enough? Why did value always mean power? She stopped near a public transport ring and sat down, pulling her cloak tighter around herself. This was the place where unchosen ones often waited, not for rides, but for time to pass. Above her, screens played news about alliances, trade, and off-world visitors. One image caught her eye. A tall, strange figure walking beside officials, marked as human delegate. Humans were new to this sector, strange beings from a loud and dangerous world. The aliens spoke of them with mixed fear and interest, strong, emotional, unpredictable. Lyra watched without much thought. Humans did not belong in her life. Nothing did anymore. What she did not know was that the human in the image was already on this world, not far from where she sat. Ethan Cole stood at the edge of the same transport ring, waiting for clearance to return to his assigned quarters. He was taller than most locals, his posture relaxed, his eyes observant. He had seen many cultures during his service, but Verex disturbed him in a quiet way. Everything was clean, ordered, and cold, especially how they measured worth. As he waited, his eyes noticed Lyra sitting alone, her shoulders slightly hunched, her gaze fixed on nothing. Most people walked past her without pause, but Ethan slowed. Something about her stillness felt heavy, like someone carrying a weight too large for one heart. He did not know her story, did not know the word unchosen, but he recognized loneliness. From where he stood, he heard her whisper again. Not meant for anyone, no one wants to marry me. The words were soft, but they hit him harder than expected. Ethan frowned slightly. Humans had many flaws, but abandoning someone for being gentle was not one of the rules he accepted. He took a step closer, then stopped, unsure if speaking would break something fragile. The transport ring lights flashed, signaling departure. Yet Ethan remained still, looking at the alien girl the world had already decided to forget. Somewhere deep inside him, a simple thought formed, quiet but stubborn. Maybe their world was wrong. Lyra felt a presence and slowly looked up, meeting unfamiliar eyes, warm, focused, human. For the first time that day, someone was truly looking at her, and in that moment, neither of them knew that a single choice, made right here, would challenge two worlds. Before part 2 begins, if you enjoy emotional sci-fi stories like this, gently consider subscribing to this channel. It helps these stories reach more listeners like you. The human opened his mouth to speak, and Lyra held her breath. not knowing that her life was about to change. The moments stretched between them, filled with the soft hum of the transport ring and distant city sounds. Lyra's breath caught in her chest as she looked at the humans standing before her. Humans were not common on Verex, and when they appeared, they were usually surrounded by officials or guards. This one stood alone, calm, almost gentle, which somehow made him more unsettling. Ethan noticed her fear and slowed his movements. He remembered reports that said aliens here read intent through posture more than words. So he kept his hands open and his voice low. "You look like someone who should not be sitting alone like this," he said. Lyra blinked, unsure if she had heard correctly. No one spoke to unchosen ones unless required. Conversation implied interest, and interest implied value. Something she no longer had. "I am fine," she replied automatically, the answer she had learned to give the world. Ethan did not move away, he simply nodded. Humans understood this answer too well. It was often a shield, not the truth. "I am Ethan," he said after a moment. "I am here as a delegate, but right now I am just someone waiting for transport." Lyra hesitated, then spoke. "Lyra, seventh ring." Her voice carried no pride, only habit. They stood in silence again, but it was different now, not empty, not sharp. It felt like a pause that mattered. Ethan glanced at the city lights, then back at her. "This place is beautiful," he said, "but it feels heavy." Lyra let out a quiet breath. "You feel it too," she said before thinking, then quickly looked down. "Embarrassed?" He smiled slightly, not mocking, just honest. "I do." Something inside her shifted. A tiny crack in the wall she had built since the council hall. She did not look up, but her words came out anyway. "Here, worth is counted before kindness." Ethan frowned. "That sounds exhausting." "It is normal," Lyra replied. "If you are useful, you are chosen. If not, you fade." "Chosen," he repeated softly, like a product. She almost laughed at that, a weak sound. But yes, the transport ring announced another departure. People moved past them. Some stared openly at Ethan. Others glanced at Lyra with confusion. A human speaking to an unchosen alien did not fit their quiet rules. Ethan felt those looks, but he did not step away. Instead he asked, "Is that why you were crying?" Lyra stiffened, shame rising fast. "I was not crying." He did not push, just nodded again. Humans had learned when silence was better than questions. After a moment, Lyra spoke again, her voice low. "Today they told me no one wants to bond with me." Ethan's jaw tightened, not in anger at her, but at the idea. Who decides that? "The council, the houses, the data," she said. "Everything that matters here." He looked at her properly now, not as a symbol or a case, but as a person. Her markings were soft, her eyes tired but kind. Nothing about her seemed broken. "On Earth," he said slowly, "marriage is messy, loud, often foolish, but no council gets to decide who deserves love." The word love felt strange on Lyra's tongue. It was rarely used here. Too unclear, too emotional. "You are different," she said. "Humans are different." "We are," he agreed, "sometimes to our own trouble." A security drone hovered nearby, scanning. Its sensors lingered on them longer than necessary. Ethan noticed human-alien interaction without approval raised flags. Lyra noticed too and shifted back. "Fear creeping in, you should go," she whispered. "They do not like this." Ethan followed her gaze and understood. Trouble was coming. Alien systems were efficient and unforgiving. He could walk away now, the safe choice, the expected one, the one everyone else had already made with her. But he did not. Instead he asked a simple question that no one had asked her before. "What do you want?" The question stunned her. Want was not part of their forms, not part of their evaluations. Want was irrelevant. "I do not know," she admitted. "After today, I think I just want a place where I am not a mistake." Ethan felt something settle inside him then. Clear and firm. Humans had crossed stars for less than this. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "There is a place like that." Her heart raced, fear and hope twisting together. "What place?" He met her eyes, steady, serious. "My home." The words hung between them, dangerous and impossible. Lyra shook her head slightly. "Humans do not bond with aliens like me. The laws, the distance, the risk." Ethan straightened, his voice calm but strong. "Humans cross oceans, planets, and wars for people they believe in. Laws come later." The drone moved closer, its light turning warning yellow. Ethan knew he had seconds before questions turned into orders. He made his choice, fast and human. "Come home with me," he said quietly, not as command, not as pity, but as an offer. Lyra's breath caught, her world tilting. No one had ever invited her anywhere, let alone across stars. Before she could answer, alarms began to sound softly across the ring, and somewhere above them, Systems marked a human and an unchosen alien as a problem that needed to be contained. The soft alarms grew louder, spreading across the transport ring like a warning breath. Lights shifted from calm blue to sharp amber, and people around them began to move away, pretending not to see. Lyra felt her heart race, her instincts screaming danger. This was exactly how trouble began on Varex. Quietly, politely, and then all at once, Ethan noticed her fear and spoke quickly. "Stay close to me." She hesitated. Every rule she had ever learned told her to step back, to lower her eyes, to disappear. Unchosen ones survived by not being noticed. But the human was still there, still looking at her like she mattered. The security drone lowered itself, its voice smooth and cold. Unauthorized interaction detected. Identify purpose. Ethan stepped slightly in front of Lyra. A small movement, but deliberate. He spoke clearly. "I am a registered human delegate. This interaction is personal. Personal interactions with unchosen citizens require review." The drone replied, "Prepare for escort." Lyra's chest tightened. Escort meant questioning, questioning meant records, and records always followed you. For someone like her, that could mean relocation, labor assignment, or worse. She reached out without thinking and lightly touched Ethan's sleeve. "You should let them take me," she whispered. "This will cost you." He looked down at her hand, then at her face, his expression firm but calm. "I already know the cost." That answer scared her more than the drone. "Additional units are inbound," the drone announced. Ethan made a decision in that moment. Not loud, not heroic, just human. He took Lyra's hand. Firmly, not pulling, just holding. The contact sent a shock through her. Physical touch outside bonding ceremonies was rare, intimate, dangerous. Yet his grip was steady, grounding. "We are leaving," Ethan said, his voice low. "Leaving is not authorized," the drone replied. Ethan glanced toward a side exit, one that led into maintenance corridors used by off-world staff. He had studied the city more than they thought. Lyra followed his gaze and shook her head, panic rising. "They will mark you," she said. "You will never be trusted here again." He gave a small, humorless smile. "I do not plan to stay." They moved, fast but not running, drawing attention without causing alarm. People stared now, whispers spreading, a human holding hands with an unchosen alien. The first guard unit appeared at the far end of the ring, tall armored figures with energy restraints ready. Lyra's breathing became shallow. This was happening too fast. Her life had been quiet pain, not open defiance. Ethan felt her slow and tightened his grip. "Look at me," he said softly. "Not them." She did, her eyes wide, frightened. "You trust me?" he asked. The question hurt. Trust was a luxury she had never learned to afford. But something inside her answered before fear could. "Yes." They turned sharply into the corridor just as a command rang out behind them. "Halt immediately." The corridor lights flickered. Emergency protocols activating. Doors began to slide shut ahead of them. Ethan cursed under his breath and pulled Lyra closer. "We do not have much time." They reached a service lift, its doors half closing. Ethan shoved his hand between them, forcing them open, and they slipped inside. The lift dropped fast, vibration shaking the walls. Lyra clutched the rail to keep her balance, her mind spinning. "What have I done?" she whispered. Ethan stood beside her, steady despite the chaos. "You chose not to disappear." That idea felt unreal. She had never chosen anything before. The lift slowed, opening into a lower transit bay used for cargo and diplomatic transport. Fewer cameras, fewer eyes, but not none. A large screen flickered on, displaying the symbol of the Varex Council. The elder's voice filled the bay. "Human delegate Ethan Cole, you are violating interspecies conduct. Release the unchosen citizen immediately." Ethan stepped forward, his voice controlled. "She is not property." The pause that followed was cold. "She is classified," the elder replied. "Her future is not yours to claim." Lyra felt the words like chains. Even now, even here, she was still a classification. Ethan glanced back at her, then faced the screen again. "Humans do not claim people, we choose them." Murmurs spread through unseen channels, the idea itself disruptive. The elder's tone hardened. "Remove her, or your access, protection, and return rights will be revoked." This was the moment, the point of no return. Lyra understood it clearly. If Ethan refused, he would become an outsider, cut off, vulnerable, all for her. She stepped forward, her voice shaking but clear. "You do not have to do this." Ethan turned to her, his eyes serious. "I know." He then looked back at the screen. "I am taking her with me." Silence followed, thick and dangerous. Then the elder spoke again. "Very well, human, but understand this. If she leaves with you, She can never return. She will be erased from our bonds, our records, our protection. Lyra's heart pounded. Erased meant truly alone. No home anywhere. Ethan did not hesitate. She will have one. The screen went dark. Alarms shifted tone. No longer warnings, but notices. Authorization granted for immediate departure. Lyra stared at Ethan, trembling. You just ended my world. He shook his head gently. No. I opened another one. As a transport craft powered up behind them, Lyra realized the truth of her choice. She was leaving everything she knew, stepping into the unknown with a human who refused to look away. And somewhere above the city, forces far larger than either of them began to take notice. The transport craft lifted smoothly from the lower bay, engines humming low as the city of Verex fell away beneath them. Lyra pressed herself into the seat, her hands clenched tight, her eyes fixed on the shrinking lights below. She felt hollow, like something essential had been cut loose. Her home, her language, her future, all left behind in a single decision. Ethan sat across from her, strapped in, his face calm but focused. He was already thinking several steps ahead. You should rest, he said gently. The next hours may be difficult. Lyra nodded but did not close her eyes. Rest felt dangerous now, as if sleep might undo what she had chosen. The craft entered high orbit, and for a brief moment, silence filled the cabin. Then the console lights changed, sharp red symbols flashing across the display. Ethan leaned forward instantly. Reading the data, his jaw tightened. What is it? Lyra asked, fear creeping back into her voice. We are being hailed by the council fleet, he replied. They want us to stop. Her chest tightened. They said they would let us leave. They did, Ethan said quietly, but they did not say they would stop watching. A new voice filled the cabin, deeper, colder than before. Human vessel, you are carrying restricted biological property. Reduce speed and prepare for inspection. Lyra flinched at the word property. Even now, they refused to see her as anything else. Ethan did not answer immediately. Instead, he activated a secure channel, his fingers moving fast, calling codes far above local authority. This is Human Delegate Ethan Cole, he said clearly, invoking diplomatic protocol. I am operating under Terran Protection Statute. Any forced boarding will be considered hostile action. There was a pause, long enough to feel intentional. Terran statutes are not recognized in Verex-controlled space. The voice replied. Ethan smiled slightly, not amused, but confident. They will be. Lyra looked at him in confusion. What are you doing? Showing them something they forgot, he said, that humans are not weak. He tapped the console, and the craft's outer display shifted, projecting a wide signal burst into surrounding space. A beacon coated with human military and diplomatic markers, old, powerful, respected. Within moments, new signatures appeared on the scanners. Ships dropping out of fold space like sudden stars. Lyra gasped softly. How many? Enough, Ethan replied. The council fleet hesitated, their formation tightening. They had expected a lone human craft. Not this. A new channel opened, this time layered with authority. This is Terran Command. You are interfering with a protected civilian under human escort. Stand down. The silence that followed was different. No longer confident, no longer cold. Lyra stared at the screen, her mind racing. They came for me. Ethan nodded. Humans do not abandon those who choose us. The council elder appeared again. Their image sharp, controlled, but something uneasy flickered beneath the surface. This response is excessive, the elder said. The alien carries no strategic value. Ethan leaned back, crossing his arms. Value is not always measured the same way. The elder's eyes narrowed. Explain. Ethan's voice was steady, but every word carried weight. Humans learned long ago that societies fall when they decide some lives matter less. We fought wars over that lesson, lost millions learning it. We will not unlearn it now. Lyra felt tears burn in her eyes, not from fear, but from something warmer, something dangerous, being defended, openly, without condition. You are risking interstellar stability for one unchosen individual, the elder pressed. Ethan nodded once. Stability built on quiet cruelty is already broken. The channel went silent again. Around them, Terran ships held position, weapons powered but not aimed, a clear message, restraint backed by strength. Lyra whispered, they will never forgive me for this. Ethan looked at her, his expression softening. You did not break them. You revealed them. Suddenly, a new data packet appeared on Ethan's console. His eyes widened slightly as he read it. Interesting, he murmured. What? Lyra asked. It seems the council forgot to erase something, he said, turning the screen toward her. On it was her genetic profile, but not the one she knew. This version was marked classified, suppressed. Her energy readings were far above average, her neural adaptability off the scale, traits associated with ancient leadership lines, not weakness. Lyra stared at the data, shaking. This is not possible. They told me I was ordinary. They told you what kept you controllable, Ethan replied softly. The truth hit her slowly. Her rejection was not because she lacked value, but because she had too much of the wrong kind. Independence, adaptability, the ability to disrupt balance. The elder's voice returned. Sharp now, that data is irrelevant. Ethan smiled again. Colder this time. No, it is inconvenient. Terran Command spoke once more. We will be escorting Ethan Cole and Lyra beyond Varek's jurisdiction. Any further action will be met with response. The Council fleet pulled back, one by one. Their power unquestionable, but their confidence shaken. As the stars stretched ahead and the craft prepared to jump, Lyra finally allowed herself to breathe. She looked at Ethan, her voice barely above a whisper. They were wrong about me. He nodded, yes. And about humans, she added. He met her gaze, eyes bright with quiet pride. Especially about us. The craft entered fold space, leaving behind a world that had underestimated both of them. And far away, in the dark between stars, others began to wonder what humanity would do next. Fold space wrapped around the craft like a silent storm, colors bending, time stretching thin. Lyra felt weightless, not just in her body, but in her thoughts, as if the past was finally losing its grip. She sat quietly, staring at the glowing data still displayed on the screen. Her own profile, rewritten by truth she had never been allowed to see. Ethan gave her space. He knew moments like this needed silence, not answers. After a long while, Lyra spoke, her voice unsteady. They knew all this, didn't they? He nodded slowly, yes. Her hands trembled. Then why tell me I was nothing? Ethan exhaled, choosing his words carefully. Because some societies fear strength they cannot easily control. The craft's lights dimmed slightly as it adjusted course. Terran escort ships held position around them, quiet guardians in the dark. Lyra pressed her hands together, memories shifting in her mind. The tests she had passed but were dismissed. The mentors who suddenly lost interest. The bonds that dissolved without explanation. They never rejected me because I was weak, she said, almost to herself. No, Ethan replied, they rejected you because you could become more than they planned. The realization hurt deeper than rejection ever had. Because it meant her pain was intentional, designed, managed. A soft alert chimed. Incoming secure transmission. Ethan accepted it. And a new face appeared. An older human woman in a command uniform. Her eyes sharp but kind. Ethan, she said. Good work getting out. She noticed Lyra and inclined her head slightly. You must be the reason half a sector is suddenly nervous. Lyra stiffened, unsure if that was praise or warning. The woman continued. I'm Admiral Reyes, Terran Command, and you deserve an explanation. Lyra nodded slowly. I would like that. The Admiral's tone grew serious. Your species carries rare adaptive traits. Your people once used them to lead expansion, exploration, even peace building, but over time power concentrated, and those traits became a threat to existing elites. So they hit us, Lyra said. They filtered you, the Admiral corrected. Anyone too adaptable, too empathetic, too independent, was labeled unstable or unfit for bonding. Isolation did the rest. Lyra's chest ached. They made us disappear without killing us. Yes, the Admiral said softly, it is an old method. Ethan clenched his jaw, anger flickering across his face. The Admiral continued. What they did not expect was a human to notice. Lyra looked at Ethan then. Really looked at him, not as a rescuer but as a disruptor. What happens now, she asked. The Admiral leaned back slightly. Now, you become a political problem, a living one, and that gives you power. Power, the word still felt strange. Dangerous. I do not want revenge. Lyra said quickly. Fear creeping in. I do not want them harmed. Ethan spoke gently. Choosing strength does not mean choosing cruelty. The Admiral nodded in agreement. Humanity learned that lesson the hard way. The transmission ended, leaving the cabin quiet again. Lyra stared at the stars beyond the viewport. So many paths, so many worlds, and she had been taught she deserved none of them. They stole my choice, she said, her voice low. Ethan leaned forward, resting his arms on his knees. And now you have it back. She looked at him, eyes searching. What if they come after me again? Not with ships, but with lies, pressure, fear. They will, he answered honestly. Systems like theirs do not like loose threads. Her fear returned, sharp and real. I am not a leader. I do not know how to fight politics. Ethan smiled faintly. Neither did most humans when we started. He stood and moved closer to the viewport. Humans are not strong because we dominate, we are strong because we adapt together. Lyra felt something settle in her chest. Not confidence, but possibility. Another alert chimed, less urgent but heavier. Ethan read it, then looked at her. The council has issued a sector-wide notice. She stiffened. What kind of notice? A designation, he said. They are calling you a destabilizing entity. The word sent a chill through her. That is dangerous. Yes, Ethan agreed, but it also means they are afraid. Afraid of me. Afraid of what you represent. Choice, change, a mirror they cannot control. The craft began slowing, stars stretching back into normal shape. They were approaching Terran space. Lyra felt a mix of relief and fear. Crossing this line meant safety, but also meant no turning back. As the jump ended, a new world filled the viewport. Blue, green, alive. Ethan followed her gaze. Welcome to the edge of home, he said. She swallowed. I do not know who I am anymore. He looked at her, his voice steady. Then this is where you find out. But far behind them, unseen signals moved quietly through shadowed channels, carrying her name, her image, her truth, and others like her, hidden, watching, began to listen. Terran space felt different the moment they crossed into it. The silence was not empty, it was watchful, layered with presence. Lyra could feel it even before Ethan pointed it out. Human ships moved with quiet confidence, not crowding them, not hiding either, each one holding position like a promise. The craft docked at a large orbital station, its structure wide and solid, built not to impress, but to endure. Lyra hesitated at the exit ramp, her claws curling slightly. This place feels too open, she whispered. Ethan nodded. Humans liked space, wide halls, visible skies, places where nothing hid in shadows for long. As they stepped inside, people noticed them. Conversations slowed, eyes turned. Lyra's heart began to race again. She expected judgment, distance, the familiar cold assessment, but it did not come. Instead, a woman in a station uniform smiled. Welcome back, Ethan, she said, then glanced at Lyra and added, and welcome to you too. Just that, welcome, no scanning stare, no rank check, no silent rejection. Lyra froze for a moment, then nodded awkwardly. Thank you. As they moved through the station, more people looked, some curious, some surprised, but none hostile. Ethan leaned closer and spoke quietly. Humans argue about many things, but once we choose someone, that argument ends. Lyra did not fully understand, but she felt it. They entered a briefing room, where Admiral Reyes waited with several others, officers, scientists, civilians, all watching with focused attention. Admiral Reyes gestured for Lyra to sit. Please, you are safe here. Safe, the word felt fragile, like glass. The Admiral activated a display, showing multiple data streams, signals, intercepted communications. Your departure has caused a ripple, she said. Lyra's stomach tightened. The Council has issued warnings, misinformation, even quiet threats. The Admiral continued. They are calling you unstable, dangerous, a symbol of chaos. Lyra's shoulders slumped. They always do that. Yes, the Admiral agreed, and that is why we are responding. Responding how? Lyra asked. Fear and hope tangled together. By choosing you openly, the Admiral said, by refusing to let them erase you again. The screen changed, showing faces, aliens, different species, some familiar, some not, all marked unchosen, filtered, isolated. Lyra gasped softly. There are so many, more than we thought, Ethan said. They have been watching since your signal went public. Watching me, she whispered. Watching your choice, the Admiral corrected. A new message alert appeared. Incoming open broadcast from Varric space. The Council Elder's image filled the screen again. Colder than before, human command. You are destabilizing an entire region, return the entity or face long-term consequences. The room was silent. Admiral Reyes stepped forward. Her voice calm, measured. We are not returning a person to quiet harm. This conversation is over. The Elder's tone sharpened. Your protection will encourage rebellion. Ethan spoke then, his voice steady but carrying weight. It will encourage honesty. The Elder's image flickered. You do not understand what you are interfering with. Admiral Reyes nodded once. We understand exactly. That is why we are here. The transmission cut, not in anger, but in retreat. Lyra felt weak suddenly and sat down heavily. They will not stop, will they? No, Ethan said honestly, but neither will we. She looked up at him. Why do this for me? He met her eyes. Because someone once did not do it for us. The Admiral placed a data pad in front of Lyra. This is optional, she said. But it matters. On the screen was a proposal, asylum, protection, and something more, a public address. Lyra read, her heart pounding. "You want me to speak? Only if you choose to," the Admiral replied. Fear surged through her. Speaking meant visibility, visibility meant risk. Ethan crouched beside her chair, looking up at her. "Remember what you told me? You wanted a place where you were not a mistake." She swallowed. "This is that place," he continued, "but places only stay that way if people stand up inside them." Lyra closed her eyes, memories flooding back. The hall, the word unchosen, the silence after. Then she thought of the station smile, the open halls, the ships that came without being asked. "I am tired of being quiet," she said softly. The room seemed to breathe out together. The broadcast went live hours later, across systems, across cultures. Lyra stood before the camera, her hands shaking, her voice unsteady at first. "I was told I had no value," she said simply. "I was told no one would ever choose me." She paused, then lifted her gaze. "I believed that because I was taught to." The feed showed faces watching, some angry, some curious, some afraid. "Then a human chose me," she continued, "not because I was useful, but because I was there." Her voice steadied. "I am not dangerous. I am not broken. I am only visible now." Behind the camera, Ethan stood still, watching, proud. The broadcast ended, and for a moment nothing happened. Then signals began to arrive. Quiet at first, then more, unchosen across systems, reaching out, asking, hoping. Lyra stared at the incoming messages, tears forming. "I am not alone." Ethan smiled softly. "No, and you never were." Far away, powers shifted uneasily, realizing too late that humanity had made its choice. And when humans choose, they never abandon. The messages kept coming long after the broadcast ended. Signals from hidden places, quiet worlds, and forgotten stations. Each one carrying the same feeling, hope mixed with fear. Lyra stood still, overwhelmed, her hands hovering over the console as if touching it might make everything too real. "They are all like me," she whispered. Ethan nodded, standing beside her. "Yes, and they finally see a path." The station moved on around them, people walking, laughing softly, working, life continuing without ceremony. And somehow that made it feel even more powerful. The universe did not stop because someone chose kindness. Days passed, then weeks. Lyra learned what it meant to live among humans. There were no halls of judgment, no councils measuring her worth. Instead there were questions, curiosity, mistakes, and patience. She learned Earth foods slowly, some too sharp, some too sweet, and humans laughed easily when she made faces, not at her, with her. She learned that humans argued loudly but forgave quickly, that they built homes full of noise and light, that silence here was a choice, not a punishment. At night, she would stand by the viewport, watching Earth grow larger as the station's orbit shifted, blue and alive, terrifying and beautiful. One evening, Ethan joined her there, holding 2 warm cups. He handed one to her without speaking. She took it carefully. "Thank you. You have been quiet today," he said gently. She nodded, thinking, then spoke. "What if one day you regret choosing me?" He did not answer right away. Instead he watched the planet below, then said, "Humans regret many things. Choosing people is rarely one of them." She looked at him, searching his face for doubt. She found none, only certainty, calm and deep. The council tried again, quietly, through intermediaries. Offers wrapped in polite language, return, reconciliation, erased records. Terran command refused every time, not loudly, not aggressively, just consistently. Lyra watched this from a distance, still half expecting the ground to vanish beneath her. But it did not. Instead, something else grew. Other species began to speak, cautiously at first, asking questions about their own unchosen. Their filtered, their forgotten. Human diplomats listened, not as saviors, but as partners. One morning, Admiral Reyes called them in, her expression serious but satisfied. "The council has officially withdrawn all claims," she said. "They will not say they were wrong, but they will stop." Lyra exhaled a breath. She felt she had been holding her entire life. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now," the Admiral replied, "you live." Simple words, but they landed with more weight than any decree. The day they finally descended to Earth, Lyra's hands shook again. The atmosphere roared around the craft, fire and pressure pressing against the hull. She gripped the armrest, fear rising. Ethan noticed and reached over, taking her hand. "I have you." The words steadied her more than the technology ever could. When the craft touched down, the door opened to warm air, wind carrying unfamiliar scents, earth and water and life. Lyra stepped out slowly, her feet touching soil for the first time. Not metal, not polished stone, but ground that shifted slightly beneath her. Alive, she laughed softly, surprised by the sound. It feels imperfect. Ethan smiled. That is how you know it is real. They walked together through a small settlement. People waved, some curious, some shy, some bold enough to say hello. No one bowed, no one measured, no one asked what she was worth. That night, under an open sky filled with stars, Lyra finally allowed herself to cry. Not quiet tears of shame, but open ones, released and free. Ethan sat beside her, saying nothing, letting the moment be hers. After a long time, she spoke. I used to think home was a place that accepted you only if you fit. He listened. Now I think home is where you are allowed to grow, even if you change. He nodded. That sounds right. She turned to him then, her voice steady. When you said come home with me, did you know what it would cost? He met her gaze. Yes, and you still chose it. He smiled softly. Always. Lyra looked up at the stars, then back at the world beneath them. A future wide and uncertain, but open. Come home forever, Ethan said quietly, not as an offer this time, but a promise. She placed her hand in his, grounding, real, chosen, and for the first time the words felt true. She was home.